So this is the lecture about image file formats, and this is something that every professional photographer has to deal with in managing all of these different digital ways that you can save and use these files. So what we're going to try to do is demystify some of these file extensions, explain specifically when it is appropriate to use certain ones, and how you can actually make your workflow more efficient by understanding these very key uh, concepts behind these file extensions. So looking at a review of image resolution, you can see that there is the combination of understanding image resolution and understanding file extensions. And putting those two things together, you'll have your professional knowledge of how photographers deliver files to clients. The web here is set up for 72 DPI, anywhere between 72 and 100. That's the resolution and the maximum resolution of most monitors. For the printer or the inkjet printer, 300 DPI is appropriate, and this will allow much greater detail in the prints. So those resolutions are set. One is for a computer monitor, the other is for an inkjet printer. So when we're dealing with delivery of files to a client, we have to understand that our clients might want to print our photographs out. They also might want to put those photographs on the internet to be viewed by a monitor. So those are two very important distinctions, and this is why I want to show you a folder, subfolder submission that a photographer made and delivered to a client. So I'm going to exit out of the keynote for a second and just show you. You can see that there are three different folders that were delivered to me. There's a JPEG folder, a TIFF folder, and a web folder. So this is important because we're about to go over the differences between JPEG, TIFF. So if we look at the JPEG folder, you can see that all the file names are consistent. It has where it was shot in San Francisco, as well as the number for the JPEGs. If you notice over here in the metadata in the Finder window, these files are around 11 to 15 megabytes at the largest, and they are saved as JPEG files. Let's compare that with the TIFF folder. If we look over here at the TIFF folder, you can see that here are the same images in the photographer's delivery method to a client, but they're all saved as TIFF files. We go over to the size metadata and notice something immediately different. Here we have 59, 118 at the largest megabytes of information. So this is really important because we have delivered to our client the same photograph to be printed out. Here is high resolution JPEGs, and here are high resolution TIFFs, yet the JPEGs are significantly smaller in size than the TIFFs. So this is important to remember as we're going through why this is even here in the first place. Now finally, the last folder that is submitted with the professional photographer's delivery to a client, we have the same images saved, yet here are web sizes for the client to actually put these images straight onto the internet. So we have 1 megabyte, 1.4 megabytes as the highest and then around 900 kilobytes for the smallest. So these are able to be put onto the web. They're able to be downloaded quickly if you're looking at them on a smartphone, on a tablet, a laptop, or a desktop computer. These are sized and ready to go. So this is the delivery package that you should expect to mimic if you are delivering files to a client. Having the TIFFs, the JPEGs at high res, and then the JPEGs at a lower res. And what I mean by high res JPEGs versus low res JPEGs, these JPEGs are set at 300 and these JPEGs are set at 72 to 100 resolution in DPI. So they're for different purposes, i.e. the web, as you're seeing here. So let's go back to our actual lecture slides. And a lot of people are wondering, especially if you have the ability to shoot in JPEG on a digital camera, why would you even select RAW as an option on your digital camera system? Now, this class doesn't require cameras, but this is the workflow of a professional photographer from beginning to end. So a professional photographer is always going to have their camera set on the RAW file setting. And this chart really explains why. Here you have the information coming from the sensor on the left, and the readout, the electronics, and the ISO setting, all the metadata that is imbued on a file after it gets taken, after a photograph gets snapped, that is written on that RAW file, and it is the information from the camera in its purest form. It is almost the equivalent of a negative if you're thinking about analog photography. It's almost one-to-one. But let's look at what happens with the JPEG file as soon as you save information into that file format. You have something called Bayer interpolation, which interprets the information that's coming from the sensor. You also have white balance, contrast, saturation, and sharpness, and a whole lot of other things